Welcome to the Office of Business Diversity and Compliance and Entrepreneurs Network Center. I am Taylor Tagg, Senior Business Services Coordinator for OBDC. I thank you for joining us for putting you in revenue. Mr. Don Farrell is going to share with us today about how to increase your revenues in 2021, which is going to be a very exciting webinar. If you're new to OBDC and the Entrepreneurs Network Center, we are located at 480 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue in downtown Memphis. The ENC is an entrepreneur resource center through the city of Memphis and include our partner organizations such as the Tennessee Small Business Development Center, the Memphis Area Minority Contractors Association, the Black Business Association, and Operation Hope, along with our 800 initiative partners, StartCo, Christian Mothers University, and Epicenter Memphis. You can reach us at 901-636-9300 or send us an email at bdcinfo@memphistn.gov to speak to or schedule an appointment with one of our business navigators. We offer business planning and strategic planning for your business free of charge, along with monthly webinars and workshops just like this to assist you with information that you need to know. You can also find a variety of recorded webinars on our YouTube channel, which is OBDC Memphis on YouTube. We encourage you to subscribe to that channel for updates and new webinars as they're posted. And feel free to also inquire about business certification through the city of Memphis, which is also a free benefit to entrepreneurs. And now on to our webinar today. And just so a couple business items to say, we're going to keep everybody on mute for the time being, but if you have questions during the webinar for Don, feel free to put them in the Q&A and we will get to them at the end of the webinar. So let's introduce Don here. Don is president and CEO of Fresh Revenues. Don started his first company back in 1986, which became the largest training company in the world, Signature Worldwide Training. Don sold that company and then started Fresh Revenues, which he considers to be the best training company in the world. Don's spoken to over 2,400 events to people on the topic of sales, service, leadership, and culture. And we're very excited and very fortunate to have him here with us today at OBDC to talk to us about how to increase and improve our revenues for 2021. So Don, thanks for being here with us. The floor is all yours, my friend.
Taylor, nice introduction. Thank you. And thank you for doing this for me and all of the attendees that are watching. First and foremost, you notice that Taylor sent you a handout. I believe it was yesterday or the day before. So if you've got that handout, or you can get to a printer real quick, go ahead and print out the answers that I'm going to give you. Okay. So we know from research, we know from studies that if all you do is sit there and try to listen to me for the next 60, 70 minutes, the retention rate's going to be, Taylor, take a wild, hairy guess. How much will you retain if all you do is listen and don't take notes?
Not much.
No, 10%. So 10% would be your retention. Your retention shoots up to about 70, 72% if you take notes. Hence the reason for sending you the handout. Okay. Now, by the way, FYI, 94% retention is possible. How do you do that? You not only take notes, but sometime tonight, sometime tomorrow, you're having dinner with someone, you're having lunch, you're having a meeting, and you bounce off of them the new stuff that you've learned today. Your retention shoots up to 94%. And what's interesting, Taylor, is when I speak at conferences, some of these are pretty big, 10,000 people, 3,000, 1,000. And I'll say, look, I need a handout for 3,000 people. And their first reaction is, oh no, Don, we're green. And my answer is, I'm green too, but it's money green. So let's do the handout. And they always do it. So that's the good part about having a handout. So hopefully I gave you enough time to get your handout in front of you. Hopefully you have enough time to print it out. And here we go. Let's start off with a question on the first slide here. Service in America, people. Do you feel like it's getting worse or better? Raise your hand if you think it's getting worse. Now, I'm pretending I can see you. I can't, but I can tell you this. I've asked that question no less than 1,000 times. And in every single audience, the vast majority of the people in there say that service in America is getting worse. And people have differences of opinion as to why that is. And we're not going to go into that. The point I'm trying to make is this. People's perception of service in America, does that impact you? Let's go to letter B there. Does that impact you? First-time inquiries, people that are just contacting you for the first time, they're saying stuff like, or they're thinking of stuff like, is this going to be a professional company? Are they going to be engaging? Are they going to be passionate about what they're doing? Or are they going to be just like the rest of America? And the truth is, they're probably going to lump you in with the rest of America. And there's good news to that. We're going to get to a formula in just a bit, B equals D over E, but that's critical to your success, everyone's success, if you do this, okay? So if you're doing the handout, does this impact you? Absolutely. People lump you in, especially first-time callers, first-time contact, okay? So what is greater than satisfaction? Is there anything greater than satisfaction? Again, I'll ask this question of audiences all over the world, and I'll say something like, so the name of the game every day for you and I is to satisfy our clients, satisfy our guests, satisfy our customers. Is that correct? Absolutely. Every day, every month, every week, every year, that's our mission, is to satisfy our clients. And I'm here to share with you that that should not be the mission. If you look at the definition of satisfaction, and I'm on letter B now, if you're looking at the definition of satisfaction, it's giving people what they expect. Is that what you want to deliver, or do you want to deliver more? Something surprising, a +1 that they didn't expect. Because when you do that, something else happens. Loyalty. And that's the L word that we want to introduce right now. Our goal, your goal, ought to be to drive loyalty within every one of your customers and clients. And while you're at it, can you possibly have a majority of your clients or business loyal to you if your own associates aren't loyal to you? Okay, that's very difficult to impossible to do. So while you're working on generating loyalty with your clientele, you've got to be working on generating loyalty with your associates as well. Okay, the V equals D over E is going to help you drive that loyalty. But before we go there, I want to give you 3 things that happen. I'm on page 2 of the handout, letter C. 3 things happen when your clients are loyal to you. We're going to focus on clients right now. Number 1, if they're loyal, they're only going to buy from you. Somebody new, somebody cheaper is going to come along. They're going to say, nope, I'm doing business with so-and-so because I trust them, I like them, I'm loyal. If they're not willing to say that, then your clients are not loyal to you, okay? And you've got to work harder to generate that loyalty. The second thing that happens when customers and clients are loyal to you is they're going to tell friends and family. There isn't a single one of you that's watching this video right now, including me, that has enough money in our advertising and marketing budget. There just is never enough money for the stuff we want to do. The best form of advertising, you already know this, is word of mouth. If you generate loyalty, you're going to get that word of mouth, okay? And the third thing may surprise you, or maybe it doesn't, you just haven't thought about it. A third thing happens if you've got a loyal client, and that is when, not if, when something goes awry, something goes wrong, something doesn't go as you planned it, and it impacts your client, they're much more forgiving. That's letter C, letter C on CC on page 2 in the handout, okay? So they're much more forgiving when you make a mistake. You want loyalty. You've got to generate loyalty. And here's a sad state of affairs, Taylor. I'll ask audiences to raise their hand if they feel like the majority of their business, clients, customers, and so forth, are loyal to them. And in a crowd of 150, 200, I'll get 10 people raise their hands. I think they're sadly mistaken. And to prove my point, I'll say, you feel like the majority of your clients are loyal to you and they'd never go anywhere else for cheaper or better or newer? No, they're loyal to me. They're going to be with me forever. Okay, let's try dialing your company right now and let me try to buy your product or service. And you can imagine what happens. So those 10 people put their hands down pretty quick because they realize that maybe they're not doing the things that it takes to generate loyalty, okay? So letter C, I'm excited about this. Of all the things that I hope you take away from today's hour-long 70-minute session is this formula. V equals D over E. Let me tell you what the V stands for. V stands for value. This is a value formula. This is why we buy stuff. So let's start with the E, and I'm going to go to the flip chart. Starting with the E, I'm going to ask you this. In your own mind, someone calls up your business for the very first time on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being super stellar, the best, legendary, phenomenal. What percent of the people are going to expect you to be a 10? And if your answer is everyone or the majority, you're mistaken. Because again, they've been impacted by the service they get in America currently, so they're going to lump you in there. So 5 is average. I'm going to use a number. Because you have a cool sounding company name, even though I don't know you, I'm hoping, praying for a 7 out of 10, okay? Now, what does the E stand for? What does the D stand for? D stands for delivery. So it's value equals delivery divided by expectation. So the phone rings how many times when they call your company? Maximum 3 times. Okay, if it rings 4, 5, 6, 7, already they're putting a chink mark in their head saying, uh-oh, they're too busy for me, they don't care about me, they don't want my business. All these things flash through your head in a heartbeat, right? So we've got to get that phone within 3 rings or less. Now we're focusing on the phone here. Obviously there's internet involved, obviously they're walking up to counters, but let's just focus on phone for the sake of time, okay, in this session. So you answer the phone in 3 rings or less. And if you look at the way and you listen to the way that your people answer the phone, I invite you to call your competition. And you're probably going to find they answer their phone the same way. So right now, which one of you is generating loyalty? None of you. You're all delivering satisfaction. My suggestion is you find a short, succinct, but appropriate tagline that says, we're different than most hotels. We're different than most manufacturing companies. We're different from most chemical companies, whatever the business is that you focus on, okay? Now, I'm going to pick on a hotel because that's my background. So to give you an example, when we trained 1,500 Hampton Inns on site over the course of about 15 months, they answered their phone, thank you for calling Hampton, this is Mary, how may I help you? It's terrific, but it's also what the competition was doing. So we implemented something that we thought was incredibly important to the guest. And believe it or not, at the time, only 55% of their guests knew that this was even true. The rest did not. And that is the fact that they have an unconditional satisfaction guarantee. Meaning, if you stay in their hotel for 7 nights, you come down on the 8th morning and the front desk associate asks you, how was your stay? And you say it was perfect except for one thing, the pillow was too hard, they're supposed to give you a free 7-night stay. It's the best guarantee I've ever seen. Well, we introduced that in the greeting. And it went something like, thank you for calling Hampton Inn. My name is so-and-so. I'm sorry. Thank you for calling Hampton Inn, where we guarantee satisfaction. My name is so-and-so. It took a split second to say it, but already it says to the caller, oh, that wasn't like Holiday Inn. That wasn't like Westin. That wasn't like the other guys. It was a little bit better. That's cool. And all of these little tick marks that keep planting themselves in the brain of the consumer says, man, there's something about these guys that I really like. It all adds up. So V equals D over E is important. We delivered, let's say you tuned in, you turned on, you made this person incredibly happy, they're engaged, they liked who you were, you delivered and if you say a 10, you're wrong. We're never a 10 because we can always be better. You delivered an 8. 8 over 7 is 1 1/7. Whenever you get greater than 1, which is they expected a 5, you delivered a 5. That's a 1 when you divide them into one another. Whenever you get over 1, that's the goal. Now you're starting to generate loyalty, okay? So what else can you do with this V equals D over E formula? I love using it with my clients and in my own company. I'll develop something, a training program for a client, and I'll send it to my people and I'll say, rank it from 0 to 10. And if it's anything less than a 9, then I ask for their input on how I can make it a 9. So you're walking around your company, you're walking around the hallways, you're running into people and you say, hey, what do you think about so-and-so? Give me a number. And they say, really, boss? Do you really want to know? I really want to know. It's a 6. Really? I thought it was a 9. Tell me why you think it's a 6. And they probably have some valid perspective that you need to incorporate into defining what a 9 and a 10 really looks like. Also, how many times do employees wait for you to make a decision? They want you to set the tone, direction, and everything else. And that's fine. You're supposed to do that. But how cool is it when you can, from the bottom up, and I hate to say bottom, from the client facing personnel that you have, all the way up to you, that's what you want. You want their input. You want their authorship. You want their hearts. You want your people to be loyal to you? You got to get their hearts, not just their heads. V equals D over E is critical to understand when it comes to every single touch point that your company or your organization has. Every time you touch a client, how are they receiving you? What's their impression of you? And if it's anything less than greater than expectation, then you're making a mistake. Now, to wrap this part up, I'll ask audiences all the time. So after telling you all of this, what's the moral of the story? They'll say something like, oh, Farrell, here's the moral. The moral is we have to be consistent. And that is the wrong answer. We have to be constantly improving. Every single day, every single week, every single month, everybody has to keep on improving, including and especially you, the leaders of the organization. So that's what V equals D over E does for you. It helps you drive loyalty, not only with your clientele, but also your associates, okay? So let's go to the next one, please, Taylor. So when does this cycle begin? When does loyalty begin? It begins the very second they come into contact with your organization. It could be a marketing piece. It could be they went online. It could have been their next door neighbor that told them about you. But where the rubber meets the road is in how you respond to an email request they have, or they go on your website and they ask a question, are you following up? Or it's a phone call, or they're walking into your company. That's where the rubber meets the road. And that's when we have a lot of control over whether or not they're going to be loyal to us or not. So it begins in the very beginning. Now, if you have salespeople making sales calls, it begins with them. Why? Because the consumer hasn't even decided they need you yet. They don't want you yet. They don't have something that they're going to buy from you yet. It begins with the sales call because they're planting that seed, they're planting the relationship, they're firming up that relationship, they're staying in contact, and eventually that prospect buys. So that's truly where loyalty can begin as well. All right. So take a look at every single thing you do in your company, and not just you. Everybody should be doing this for you. And they're ranking from 0 to 10. How are we performing? All right. Taylor, next one, please. All right. Who should lead your sales efforts and how? This is a personal philosophy, and if you don't believe in it, that's fine. But I'm going to share with you what works for me. I was fortunate enough to be able to build my first training company starting in 1986. Taylor mentioned it. I started in the spare bedroom of my house. It was just me for the first 4 years. And then we built it to 283 associates, 10,000 clients. We're licensees in 44 different countries. There was no training company on the planet that could get to 1,000 locations over the course of 3 months if that's what the client wanted. We were the only option. We were the only ones that could do that. So as a result, since day one, my number one responsibility for every organization I've ever run is to be responsible for the sales efforts. It's my job to make it rain. I have to go after the big deals. And when that happens, what's really cool is it impacts your culture. When everyone knows that you, the number one dude or person or woman in your company that is so concerned with revenues, so will they be. It's amazing to me. I can work in almost any company and I can tell you who the leaders are based on the kind of interaction I have with the customer facing personnel. If the boss is in their office working on spreadsheets and working with numbers all day long, guess what? The employees are like, okay, that's what's important. The numbers, the accounting, that's what's important. But if you're a leader that says, look, I am responsible for the sales efforts. Even though we have people that do that, I'm not delegating 100% of that responsibility just to them. I am part of that sales efforts, so will they be. Every single one of your associates ought to see themselves as sales. And here's the sad state of affairs. If you said to someone who is in a service role, for example, if you said, look, how would you like to be in sales? They would be like, oh, no, I hate sales. I hate salespeople, okay? So we've got to redefine what a good sales effort looks like, because the vast majority of salespeople out there don't make a good sales call, all right? So fuel that feeds your engine. Always, always, always. Never, ever, ever give up your revenue acquisition. That's what you're responsible for, all right? Picture this, you know this already. If you don't have the revenues, it's hard to make mistakes. It's expensive to make mistakes. You're not willing to take risks because the top line's not there. The revenues aren't there. If they are, you can afford to make mistakes. You can learn with those mistakes and you can move forward, and it makes you a better company, better organization. So don't ever give up that function, okay? All right, so let's keep going. Culturally, we talked about that already. Everybody should be part of this sales and service culture. Now, let's pretend you're a warehouse, and I'm in the warehouse, and my job is to make sure the pallets are off the floor and I've got stuff stacked on all the shelves. How can I impact sales? Well, you can impact sales because you've got friends and family and people you run into at parties or wherever it is, and they have a need for your service. You are now a salesperson. You're an ambassador of that organization. You are the face of that organization. You are in sales. Ask your associates to help you find sales leads. I'll never forget the day. I'm a director of sales at a large hotel, 500 rooms, meeting space for a couple thousand. I'll never forget the day that I found out some of our housekeepers had taken their family reunions, their bowling banquets, and other things to other venues when they could have brought it to my hotel, but they didn't because I didn't ask them to. And when I started asking them to, I was getting leads and business from housekeepers and maintenance people and front desk associates and bartenders. It's amazing what happens when you ask for it, okay? Letter C there, please. Oh, very good. Quotas, goals, sales action plans. Quotas and goals, you already know about that. But here's what I want to impress upon you. Sales action plans. If you're not working with goals and quotas along with sales action plans, you're probably making a mistake. And what I like and what I prefer, and this is my recommendation to you, is you work with a 30, 60, 90-day sales action plan. What does that mean? That means that you've got, let's say, a spreadsheet, a legal size spreadsheet, and you've got a column that says, let's do this activity. And when should we have the activity completed? And who's responsible? Who's leading this effort? And what do we think our ROI is going to be? What's the return on investment going to be? Here's our assumption as to what we're going to produce. Now, here's the most important column that you never see in sales action plans, and that is results. And that ought to be the longest space where you indicate what are the results, month to date, year to date, so far, total project, whatever it is, you're indicating what the results are. Taylor, believe it or not, when it comes to these sales action plans, I've had more success with people who have, say, a written legal size sheet of paper where we've handwritten in everything. First of all, there's something that happens to your brain when you think it, see it, the retention goes up. We already talked about that. So now I'm retaining this better than maybe I would if I saw it just on a computer screen. But I'm bringing this sucker to every meeting that I'm having within my company, and we're updating, and there's coffee stains on it. It's a working document. And the reason it's called 30, 60, 90 is you update it at the end of every month. So you're always looking 90 days out. You formally evaluate yourself every 30 days with your boss and your people. How are we doing? And you're going to find that some of the stuff you put down for your sales action plan doesn't make sense. Well, now you learned. You're not going to make that mistake again. And then you're going to find that there's things that you thought were going to have a little bit of an impact, have a lot of an impact, okay? So make sure you have sales action plans. Letter D there, trace dates. What's a trace date? Your salespeople are contacting prospects, and the prospect says, tell you what, I'll probably have a need somewhere around more in March. Can you call me like mid-March or so? And the salesperson is going to say, absolutely. Well, they're going to continually follow up anyway. And we're going to talk about that as a follow-up program. But let's just stay with trace dates for a second. So what you're doing as a salesperson is, okay, the client, the prospect, I should say, asked me to follow up in mid-March. My suggestion is, again, you always deliver more than they expect. I'm going to contact them the first week or the second week of March with a follow-up because that's what they suggested. Well, to make sure I remember to follow up, you need trace dates. And if you've got CRM, client relationship management software, that's built in there. If you don't have CRM, you don't have an excuse not to have trace dates. It could be something, Taylor, as simple as a plastic box with a lid, and in there are all the next 30 days by date files or folders in there, dividing it up. And you've got index cards, 3 by 5, with their organization's name and the date that you said you would follow up. And it goes in that box so that when Friday comes, your salespeople and you are pulling your traces for the following week. And you're looking at all the things you're going to be doing next week. If you're walking in Monday morning saying, okay, what am I going to do this week? I think you're making a mistake. You've got to know what you're doing. If Friday's your last day of the week, you've got to know what you're going to be doing on Monday by Friday night. Okay? Trace dates help you do that. CRM helps you do that. Now, follow up with a program. What do I mean by that? The vast, and I mean like 99 point whatever percent of the salespeople out there are pretty decent at making one sales call. Some make 2, incredibly rare that somebody makes 3. And if they don't have the prospect's business, they give up. There's absolute empirical data that shows if you take someone who had no intention of buying your services and you make at least 8 contacts, that your chance of success in securing business is so much greater. There are studies now that are suggesting it could be as many as 11. So I'm going to say between 8 and 11 contacts. Well, you don't want to keep just making a phone call. You don't want to just keep sending an email because it becomes white noise, okay? What you want to be able to do is have a structured approach. Maybe the first time you contact this prospect is through an email. And then the next one's a phone call. And you follow that up with a text. And the next one is a video that you took of some of your associates that says something like, we can't wait for you to be a client. My people are excited. I told them about you, kind of video. So it's that kind of stuff that really makes it a program, not just a boring one dynamic approach. Make it multi-dynamic, okay? Next one, please, Taylor. All right, so you need to commit, please. My strong suggestion is you need to commit to sell like nobody else sells. And one way to find out how you should be selling is to know how your competition is selling. We call them mystery calls. We call them shop calls. I've got an arrangement with the National Institute for the Blind. Blind people, the 72% of Americans who are blind are unemployed. And these people have master's degrees because they're at home with nothing to do. They're online, they're getting educated. These are smart, educated, committed individuals who would kill to do well for you. That's who they are. So we've got this relationship with these folks, and they actually make the mystery calls for us. And what's cool is you're gonna, and if you want to do this on your own, you can. Just make sure you don't use your phone because they have caller ID. But if you were to call up an organization who's your competition, and let's pretend it's a hotel again. We'll stay with the hotel theme. If I was a Holiday Inn and I wanted to see how Marriott sold against me, I would call up pretending to be someone who is looking for a piece of business or send my business somewhere. Sleeping rooms, banquets, meeting space, coffee breaks, AV, that kind of thing. And later on in the conversation with this Marriott person, I would say, okay, I need to call a couple more places and I'll get back to you. Now, Marriott's trained to say or ask, may I be so bold as to ask you who else you're looking at? And you would say, well, I'm looking at this Holiday Inn here. I don't know anything about it, but I'm looking at Holiday Inn and I don't know what the other one is. Let's see what they say about your organization. You've got to be careful what your people say. If your people are slamming your competition, that's incredibly wrong. It's not professional. It's not going to sit well with the prospect. So if someone said to me, I'm considering the Marriott in addition to your hotel, my first reaction would be, Marriott is a great competitor. They perform incredibly well. However, I think what you're going to find at my hotel is the following. Boom, 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 boom. I didn't slam them, but I certainly went up against them. So you're going to learn how your competition sells against you. And you've got to sell better and smarter. All right. We're going to spend more time on that later in this presentation. By the way, let me say this now. Go ahead and advance the slide, please, Taylor. Let me say this now. This presentation, this segment today is laying the foundation for what I hope, and I think Taylor hopes, is an ongoing series. I could take any one of these things and turn it into 70 minutes where we can really drill down and give you much more content. But right now, what we're doing is we're establishing a platform, a foundation, if you will, that we can hopefully go in and delve deeper in future dates, okay? All right, so next one, please, Taylor. New business, where do you go? So my company, Fresh Revenues, as you can tell from the word revenues, is all about finding new sources of revenues for our clients. And our clients range anywhere from hotels to hospitals to assisted living to chemical companies to a tent manufacturer, and I could go on and on and on, okay? So those are our clients, and we're global. Before COVID, we were global. Right now, we're Zoom, but we'll go back to global again when COVID is done with. So the first suggestion we make, and I got to be honest with you, it's not a sexy answer, but our clients are very excited. We just got there. We're just talking to them about engaging with them, and their reaction is, okay, so what's the latest and greatest thing? So what are we going to focus on? Something that'll be around in 2020. Let's get ahead of the curve, Farrell. Let's do this. Well, I appreciate the excitement, and this answer is not sexy, but the first thing we're going to do is to look at who's trying to come in and buy your product or your service. Why? Because if we fix that today, you're going to have business tonight. So it's an immediate impact by taking a look at your low-lying fruit. I can promise you this. I probably listened to, in my lifetime, 200,000 shop calls of sales offices and people in offices like yours or companies like yours. And I can count on 2 or 3 fingers where somebody was doing it at a stellar level. The rest were leaving money on the table. So first and foremost, please take a look at your low-lying fruit. How do you do that? Shop your own people. Try to buy your service or your product and see what happens. See what kind of an impression you have and compare it to your competitors. And you'll probably find they're driving satisfaction and so are you. Big mistake, okay? Next one, Taylor, please. All right. Now, this is one of the hardest things to get my clients to do is to track incoming and outgoing conversions. So let's focus on the phone again. It could be walk-in, it could be the internet. But let's just focus on phone for the sake of simplicity here. You want to be able to track how many inquiries are coming in. And of all the viable opportunities, meaning you have a product or service available for this person, how many times do you make the sale? A, clients don't know. B, they don't know what the conversion percentage ought to be. I'll suggest to the client, I'll say, okay, so what's our goal for converting calls? Their answer is almost always 100%, Farrell, we want them all. Well, there's something wrong, Taylor, if we're converting 100% of the inquiries. What do you think that is, Taylor?
Well, you're not focusing on the right folks.
That, and you're probably not charging enough money. If 100% of the people are saying, yeah, I'm buying your product or service, you may, I'm not saying you are, but I'm saying you may be priced too low, okay? So again, using a hotel as an example. What hotels don't know is the vast majority of them are converting 30% of their inquiries. How do I know that? Because we've done thousands of classes all across the world, and we get those answers from the line staff who are coming up with them off the top of their head because nobody's tracking it, but they're a pretty good source because they're the ones taking the calls. They're the ones taking the inquiries, all right? So now that we know it's 30, how do we get it to 80. And when we surpass 80, and I don't mean in one day, I mean over the course of a couple of months. A month comes and goes and we're at 83% conversions. Okay, that's good. Let's do another 30 days and see what happens. Now we're at 84% conversions. This might be a good time to consider raising your prices. And if it backs down to 80%, if you do the math, your profit will be so much greater, okay? So consider that. But the only way you can do that is to make it with an educated decision. And an educated decision has to come from your ingoing and outgoing conversion rates. And when I say outgoing, I mean the sales calls that your salespeople are making. What is their conversion percentage, okay? Next one, Taylor, sorry. All right, keep in mind, the goal is not to satisfy these clients. Our goal is to drive loyalty from the second we touch them or they touch us, all right? Next one. All right, we already talked about that. B2B, shop them first, compare. Next one. Social media, so LinkedIn for B2B, this is just rule of thumb. I'm not a social media expert, and they're gonna have a little bit of a difference of opinion than me, but for the sake of this exercise, LinkedIn for B2B, business to business, and Facebook and Pinterest for business to consumer. So obviously, focus on those kinds of things. Now, the reason I put this on here is, I mean, that's a slam dunk. Everyone knows that, right? But here's what I see, Taylor. I see focus. I see clients focusing almost 100% of their efforts on social media. Why? Because it's affordable if the ROI is there. You can measure the ROI. You can track the results. It's today's thing. I can go to the bar and talk to my buddies about social media because that's what they're talking about. And I'm going to warn you, I'm going to caution you. You need to be much more dynamic, meaning you need to look at every single way, every single channel that your customers buy from you. And you're taking a look at that saying, is that a social media impact? Is that something over the phone? Is that face-to-face? Sorry, I did a long session this morning. Losing my voice already. So you're taking a look at that stuff, and social media is only a piece of your entire sales action plan. It's not everything. You're not plowing all your money into social media. Don't do that, okay? Letter D. So I'll work with clients, Chicago, LA, New York, doesn't matter, okay? Gary, Indiana. And I'll sit down with them. And when we talk about especially outbound selling or outbound marketing, they'll focus on, okay, here are our feeder markets. We're Chicago. Detroit's a feeder market. Indianapolis is a feeder market. St. Louis is a feeder market. And they're right, but what they really ought to be doing is saturating their incredibly local markets first and foremost. And they're working in concentric circles, working their way out to St. Louis and Indianapolis and Detroit. So they forget about their own backyard. I even go to the trouble of having maps printed where every single building on every single block within a radius of X amount of miles from my client's company will actually identify who is in those buildings. And have we saturated our pursuit before we start making calls in Indianapolis, Detroit? Okay, hope that makes sense. Next one, please, Taylor. Oh, sales blitz, get ready. So, sales blitzes work. What's a sales blitz? A sales blitz is a concentrated effort, phone and or in person. Let's just focus on the personal blitz first, and then we'll get into the phone. So let's pretend you're a relatively small organization. When you're bigger, you can have much bigger numbers than this. So you have 6 individuals that have a personality. Maybe none of them is a professional salesperson, or maybe only 1 or 2 of them are. The others work in other capacities in your organization, but they have a great personality, okay? And you ask them to meet in a meeting room, and the 6 of you, including you, are suggesting that you're going to go out and make concentrated sales calls. And if you set this thing up right, the math looks something like this. You can make, on page 4, the handout is letter E, subletter A. If you had 3 groups of individuals making 15 calls a day, which you can do, You can do 20, but let's say it's 15 times 3 straight days. That's 135 people that you met with face to face. Ask yourself this: when is the last time your sales office made 135 personal calls? In some cases, that's what they do over the course of a couple of months or a year or half a year, whatever the number is. You can do it in 3 days. If only 10%, which is a low number, have any kind of impact out of 135, that's 14 new clients you just picked up, times whatever your average sale is. That's what you can generate with a sales blitz. All right. Now, what else happens? What else happens is you've got individuals who did not, you told them they were in sales, but they didn't know what that meant. Now they do. Now they have a lot more empathy for the salespeople. It'll break down barriers. It'll break down walls between operations, HR, accounting, sales. It'll break down those barriers because now they have a lot more empathy as to what a salesperson goes through. Okay. So sales blitzes work. They work so well that I always had one every quarter. And you're asking yourself, well, why don't we do one every week? Because you'll probably kill your people. But I would have one at least every quarter. And you know what's amazing? This is going to sound stupid, but it's true. I'm going to share everything with you. I have no secrets. It's kind of cosmic. What does that mean? You go out and make a bunch of sales calls, the phones are going to start lighting up. And I remember distinctly, I'm in St. Louis at the time, and I pick up the phone and I'm talking to a prospect. And I said, well, let me ask you something. You've never done business with us before. Did you see one of our people on a sales blitz? And their answer was almost always, what sales blitz? I don't know what happens, but when you put enough energy and effort into something like a sales blitz, the return is going to be great. Even people that you didn't see on sales calls. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I've seen it happen time and time again. Next one, please, Taylor. All right, so sales techniques. So what will distance you and close more business? First and foremost, there is a process and a scientific, artistic way to make sales calls. If we have another session, and I hope we have one pretty soon, we can focus on this. What are the absolute steps that we ought to be taking? Now, you'll never hear me say the word script other than right now, because that's not what we ought to be doing. That we ought not to be handing our people scripts, say this. What we ought to be handing them is a formula that says step 1 is warm up, be a real person, have a real conversation. Get this person to feel incredibly comfortable before you start taking down their needs and before you start talking about benefits, okay? So there's a process that you have to follow. Now, if you guys can't wait to hear that in the next session, go ahead and contact me. I think I've got the information on the handout. Contact data, yeah. Or I'll give it to you at the end. And feel free to contact me and I'd be glad to share this with you ahead of time, all right? In fact, I'll even send you a copy of my book. It's the 50 things I did to liberate business from the competition. So I'd be glad to send that to you for free if you contact me. All right, so there is a process. You just don't wing it, okay? And you just don't listen to what they have to say, take down their needs, tell them what you got, get back to them eventually because they're still thinking about what kind of an impact you'll have or whether or not they're going to do business with you. That's not the way to do it, okay? There is a process and there's science behind it and there's art behind it. Letter B. I love this saying. I've been dragging this around for the last, 5, 6, 7 years since I've seen it. And I suggest you adopt this as your philosophy when it comes to contacts with your clientele and your prospects. People don't care what you know until they know why you care. So you have to indicate that early on in the sales process, whether it's over the phone, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's online. They need to know the why. And we're going to cover more on that later in this presentation. But it's not about their American Express. It's about them. Your commitment should be to have this client, this customer forever, not one transaction. You want them forever. So what does it take to earn that loyalty? Okay, letter C. Okay, another one. I could spend 200 hours with you on this and you still wouldn't be an expert, but I want to introduce this. Personality partnering is focusing on the client, focusing on the prospect Who's trying to communicate with me? How are they doing it? What is their personality? If you think about it, is it words that are important, or is it the feeling that you create? Is it the words, or is it the tone? And obviously it's the tone. And that's what personality partnering can get you, all right? The way we teach it is there's 4 distinct personality styles. I'm just gonna emulate those 4. Ready? The first one, oh, absolutely not. I don't care. I'm not doing that. Second one, hey, how you doing? How's it going? Third one, yes, please. I'm driving down Highway 240 at 72.3 miles an hour in my 4-door Volvo sedan. And the last one, hardest one. Okay, I love the fact that you have this and this and this in stock, and it's only going to cost me $1 billion. Sounds great. Let me get with so-and-so. Let me figure this. Let me get right back to you. And you need to know that they're probably not going to get back to you. So how do you identify these people, and how do you adjust? One I want to leave you with in this 70 minutes is this. Mirror their personality. If they're upbeat, you're upbeat. If they're incredibly detailed and fairly monotone, so are you. The people we're most afraid of, the people your people are most afraid of, are dominant drivens. That's the first one. Absolutely not. Positively no. You got to be kidding me. That's outrageous. What they need to know is those are the easiest people to sell to. Are they cheap? Generally not. Are they demanding? Oh yeah. Is that okay? Oh yeah, because they will make you a better organization. If you could take care of those folks, you could take care of a lot of folks, okay? So the first thing you people need to realize is those dominant drivens, those pushy in your face, I'm from New York, so I can say this, New York City kind of stuff, those are the easiest people in the world to sell to. And when you do, they are incredibly loyal to you and your organization. In fact, they won't do business with anyone but you personally. Is so-and-so there? No, he's got a day off today. I'll call tomorrow. That's how loyal these folks are, okay? So emotional intelligence is what we're talking about here. So if you don't know a lot about emotional intelligence, you've heard of EQ, okay? I'm sorry, you've heard of IQ, intelligence quotient. This is EQ, emotional quotient. It's figuring out the personality of the person and how they like to be talked to, how they like to be communicated with. Take a sidebar real quick. We're not just talking about business here. When you can adapt your personality style and your tone and your delivery to the person you're talking to, it makes you a better parent, makes you a better spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, leader in your organization. It makes you a better communicator. Every single training class I've ever taught, the first thing they say to me is, our communication organization needs to be improved. So communication is always at the top of everybody's list that could be better. Personality partnering can help you with that communication piece, okay? Taylor? People love to buy, but they hate being sold to. So what does that mean? That means if I hang up the phone or I'm at your counter and I walk away going, man, that person laid it on hot and heavy. The people that get a bad rap about this and deserve it in many cases are car dealerships, okay? So they're selling me because they're worried about their commission. They're worried about their spiff. What they should be doing is focusing on me as a lifelong client, a lifelong customer. And when they do that, I'm gonna buy, okay? So people love to buy stuff, but they hate being sold to. If I hang up a phone call with you and I feel like I had a conversation, that's exactly where you want me to be. Next, please, Taylor. Don't sell stuff. So I mentioned that first company. This happened, and I use this on sales calls for the rest of my tenure there. So we had 100 seats in my contact center, and this gal came in on a Saturday morning early. She's wearing these huge rollers in her hair with this big hairnet. I don't even know women did that anymore, but she did. And she sits down at her cubicle and she starts working. And somebody gets up from theirs and goes, hey, so-and-so, aren't you getting married today? And she says, yeah, but I had to make sure I got this done before I did. That's who was working for us. That's how much they care. And I made sure that people knew about her and many others within my company that established the culture. Your culture is something nobody can steal, okay? Your culture ought to be the greatest point of difference between you and your competition. So what are those cultural things that you can relay? All right. Give them a good why they should be doing business with you. And if you want more on this, Simon Sinek does a great job of exploring the whys of why people buy. He'll do a concentric circle. He'll say most salespeople focus on, here's what we have to offer. And the next circle is, here's how we do it. And the third circle is, and here's why you should buy us, and here's why we do it. Lead with the why. And his claim is this: it's not even psychological, it's biological, where your brain is more tuned into the why than it is the what and the how. So read his stuff. He's got some good stuff. Next one, please, Taylor. All right, so let's summarize here. We've got 9 minutes, and then we're going to take questions. So the bottom line here is we should not be trying to satisfy our prospects, our clients, our guests. We should not be trying to satisfy our associates. The goal ought to be loyalty. And again, 3 things happen. They will only buy from you, they will tell many others, and they'll be much more forgiving when you make a mistake. Loyalty is the key, but you have to earn it. You can't buy it. You can't just hope for it. You have to earn it. Ask your clients, what does it take to earn more of your business? What does it take to earn your business? The number of times I walk into an organization, Taylor, where I say, what about so-and-so company? Oh, we've already got them. They're set. They're fine. They're not going anywhere. That's a dangerous place. That's a dangerous place to be. Don't ever make that assumption. Keep on earning your client's business. I don't care how long they've been with you. Don't take them for granted. Now, when it comes to generating loyalty for your associates, let me add this. One of the ways that I do that I've seen succeed for a lot of our clients is, here's a suggestion, and I'll start it with a question. Well, first of all, I'll ask, how many people work for you? And they'll give me a number. It doesn't have to be the owner. It doesn't have to be the president of the company. It could be a supervisor. And they say, 3 people work for me. All right, so you're a leader of 3 plus yourself, right? Do you love your people? And they'll say, excuse me, do you love your people? And they'll say something like, yeah, I love my people. Okay, good, prove it. And they're like, how do I prove it? From now on, what I would love to have you do to prove that you love your people is to sit down at the end of every single month and you do an informal evaluation of their performance over the last 30 days, okay? So let's pretend we're doing the first one. Hey, Mary, come on in. Thanks for being here. This is only gonna take like 15, 20 minutes, but it's incredibly informal. And I wanna start off with, I've observed some things that I think you need to work on. What is it? She's gonna get defensive. What is it? So-and-so and so-and-so. You get kind of defensive when this happens. I do not. Mary, you're doing it right now. You may not realize it, but you do. You get too defensive when somebody counters you or says there's a problem or a complaint or whatever. So let me suggest you do this. Now, write this down somewhere, people, please. The difference between training and communicating is skills practice. Today is not really a quote unquote training event that I would like to have. If we were doing role play or we're doing feedback back and forth, that becomes training. So take this opportunity in this meeting with this associate to have them role play. They gave you the right answer. They said, okay, from now on, not to be defensive, here's what I'm gonna do. This, this, and this. And you say, terrific. They haven't been trained yet. Let's role play what we just learned. And you're gonna find out that what you think she understood, she did not understand because she didn't say the right things. This is your chance to fix it. And you say, okay. And there's one more thing you need to work on, Mary. Oh no, what is it? This and this and this. Yeah, I realize that's a weakness of mine. All right, so how are we gonna fix that? Role play, role play, role play. Mary gets ready to leave. And you say, Mary, sit down. I got one more thing for you. It's the most important piece of this discussion. What is it? What do you want to be when you grow up, Mary? And I ask that question, Taylor, whether they're 18 or 80. What do you want to be when you grow up? Is there a goal? Is there something you're striving for? Now, let's assume for a second, 50% of the people don't know. It's not your job, my job, to figure out what they want to be. But it is your job, my job, to give them an avenue to go to if they're looking for advice or suggestions on being the person they want to be. And it doesn't always have to be a professional goal. It could be a personal goal if you can help them. okay? So after that 20-minute conversation where they leave your room going, wow, they truly care about me, not just the production, they care about me. That's cool. So you found out from Mary, she wants to be a fire person, a fireman, let's say. The next 30 days, you're having a meeting again with Mary. You're talking about her defensiveness. She got a lot better. The other thing you talked about, she got better, but she could still be better. And you introduce another thing. And Mary says, boss, are you going to keep telling me all my shortcomings? Your answer is absolutely positively, Mary, because I want you to be the best you can be because you told me you want to be a fireman. So what have you done in the last 30 days, Mary, to become a fireman? And Mary is going to probably say, oh, I've been busy. I got school. I got home. I got kids. I got that. Hey, Mary, I'm not trying to rush you outside this doors. I love having you here. But I wanted to see what you've done to move your life along. I took the opportunity to call the local fire station. I don't know who this guy is, but he's an older guy and he sounded like a good guy. His name is Gus. Here, call Gus. He's going to buy you a cup of coffee and talk to you about what it means to be not just a fireman, a stellar fireman. What is your associate going to feel? What are they going to think about you? You're helping them with their lives, okay? So drive loyalty with your associates. That's just one of 10 things you could be doing. Letter B, always, 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 you're leading the engine. You're leading the charge. You're delegating it, but you're never leaving that tether from the people you've delegated to in terms of the responsibility for the revenues. If revenues are short, it's not just your sales office that's at fault, it's you. You take the responsibility. And when things get incredibly good and you're beating budget, give them the credit. But you're taking the shortfall. You are responsible, all right? It'll change your culture to be much more sales and service driven. People will feel like that is a major priority. They're going to help you sell. And from now on, when somebody says to you how many salespeople you have, you don't say 3, you say 30, because that's how many people work for you. 30 people are in the sales office, including me. Letter C. It's a process. You're not going to make a sales call one and done. You're not going to make 2 sales calls and done. You're not going to make 3 phone calls in a row. You're going to look at a program and a process. To take it a step further than the one I gave you earlier, we did the video. We left off with the video message, right? The next one could be a gift that you send that's cost effective that says, hey, just was thinking about you. You mentioned that you golf and I saw these golf balls on sale. I thought I'd send them to you, kind of thing. So maybe it's a gift. And then after that, maybe it's a call from your boss that says, hey, I've been talking to Don about you and the prospect of doing business with you. And I'm really excited about the opportunity. Please let me know if I can do anything, if I can help. So now they're being contacted by the president of the company. How cool is that? So make it a process and make it at least an 8-point touch process, okay? D, lead with why. Not what do we do, how we do it. Lead with why we do it. I love doing these sessions today. It's a kick in the pants for me to get phone calls from you guys that says, hey, do you remember me? And I probably will say, no, I don't. Who are you again? I'm so-and-so. And I took your advice and as a result, I got promoted. As a result, we did this much more business. As a result, that's a kick in the pants for me. I live for that kind of stuff. So I love doing these and I hope you got something out of this. All right. Next one, 10 minutes. It's up to you to send in questions to Taylor. He's going to ask me those questions and we're going to try to answer every one of them. If we don't get to your question, email me, and I'll give you my email right now, don@freshrevenues.com. You know what's hilarious, Taylor? I was at my bank the other day, and they said, what's your email address again? don@freshrevenues.com. The banker asked me, how do you spell revenue? So that was pretty funny. All right, so contact me, and I'll be glad to answer your question. All right, so do we have any that came in right away?
We have a couple ways to do this. You can raise your hand and we'll call on you, or you can type a question in the Q&A and we'll ask it that way. I do have a question though, as we're getting these questions in though. You know, you talked about talking with the different type of personalities. So how do you work with a group when you're facing like all 4 at the same time? You're talking to all different kinds of people at the same time?
Outstanding question. So let's pretend we're not even selling, quote unquote. We're leading an organization. We have 4 different kinds of personalities in the room. You can't say, okay, that person's ego expressive, so let me get excited. Oop, that one's stable analytics, so let me get analytic and talk like an engineer or an accountant. You can't do that. You've got to be able to address all 4 at the same time. So what's the best way to do that? Write this down. Point for the head, story for the heart. Point for the head, story for the heart. So what's the point? The point is you're talking about the benefits of your product or service. And then you're going to tell a story about how that impacted your clients' lives. Now, what's happening is you've got 2 personality styles who love the points. And they're like, didn't need the story, the points were great. And then you've got people who are more intuitive like me who love the stories. So if you do point for the head, stories for the heart, you're really congregating those 4 personalities at one time. And part of what you're saying is registering with all of these different personalities. Okay. So that's an excellent question.
Okay.
Do we have another?
We do have a hand raised here. Let me go to Emma.
Okay.
See if she has a question. Emma, do you have a question? She may be
Actually, I'm here. No, I did not have a question. That was way back at the beginning when he said, how many of you feel like you're reaching a lot of people? And I raised my hand there to say, yes, I am one of them. But no, I don't have a question. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for that. Anyway, we do. I have a couple more questions for you, Don, though. I know, folks are concerned with, selling and nervous about overcoming, prospect objections and that kind of thing. What's a good thing to kind of to tell them and share with them so they can be more confident with that piece?
So the scariest part of a sales call for most salespeople is the part where the client objects to something you've said, the prices you quote, the services you offered. They live in fear of that. And the problem is they've set themselves up for it. Taylor, if the salesperson's doing more talking than the prospect, they're making a mistake. Listen to the prospect, tune into what's important to them, focus on what's important to them. When you get to a point where now you've discovered all of their needs and you summarize those needs in the sales call and you offer options that make sense, if you're not absolutely positively sure they're going to say, yes, I'll buy your service or product, you're going to do what's called a trial close. And it could be something that sounds like this. I'm not saying these are the words you ought to use, but something like this. My words that work for me are, okay, so we talked about all these different things we could do for you. And I summarized it. We talked about the price. We talked about the different options. Do one of those options work for you? And if we could deliver all of this stuff, is this something that would tend to lean you towards buying our product or service or not? And they might say, oh, no, you were great, but I've got to bring this back to a committee. I've got to check with the moon and the stars. I got to check with my husband or my wife, whatever it is. I could be dealing with that 4th personality style, which is amiable complacent. Taylor, 55% of North Americans are amiable complacent. They like to be liked. They're not going to tell you the truth because it's uncomfortable. They hate to hear the word. They hate to say the word no. So to avoid that conflict, they'll say, sounds great, let me call you back. And they don't. So if I get any resistance at all from the trial close, then I've got to find out where that resistance is coming from. That is the best way to deal with objections. Interestingly enough, I got a call from a client probably a year ago. And they said, man, we got all our training in place. We love our sales training. The only thing we need is to overcome objections. We need that from you. Can you design that segment and can you plug it into our current program? You're eliminating objections throughout the entire sales call. So it doesn't work that way. You don't get to a point in a sales call and say, okay, client, it's time for you to object. Go, I'm ready. No, you're avoiding and you're overcoming these objections through the entire sales process. And if you're unsure if they're going to buy, you do the trial close and you overcome those objections, or you don't. Not every prospect is a good prospect for you. They may not want to spend enough money. They may want a different kind of product. So it's okay to say, no, this just doesn't make sense for you and them. I hope that answers your question.
It does. We do have a couple minutes left. If you still you want to raise your hand or type a question in Q&A, feel free to do that. And again, Don, I want to thank you so much for joining us, because this has been unbelievably great. George Tagg has a question here. He says, in terms of 8 to 11 calls, touch points before making a sale, what are your recommendations on the frequency of those touch points? And what is a good rule of thumb when you're not getting feedback from a potential client?
Love it, George. You got to get the feedback, meaning at the end of the first contact, you ask them, when is a good time to follow up? So every time you're touching them, you're asking, when can I follow up? What works for you? So it's not your agenda, it's their agenda. And if it takes you a year to make the sale, then it takes you a year. It's what the client wanted, So it's hard to force them to make a decision unless, and this is a huge unless you can create a sense of urgency, because the product's not going to be there, or the service is not going to be there, or you're going to be sold out, or you're going to be so busy you can't take care of them. Now you've created a sense of urgency. That is the absolute truth. Do not fabricate that sense of urgency. The number of times, Taylor and George, that I've seen a client ask their salespeople, ask their associates to lie is incredible. And when you do that, they're wondering, you as a boss are asking me to lie to those people, or fib to those people, even tell them we're busy, you got to buy now, or forever hold your peace, and that's not true. Then how much are you lying to me is what they're going to ask themselves. And it's a good, fair question. So ask the client, when's a good time to follow up? They'll give you an answer. And I always try to follow up a couple of days or even a week ahead of time. If they say, contact me in 2 months, I'm going to contact them at least a week ahead of time. Okay. Hope that does it.
Okay. Janice asked the last question here. She wants to know a little bit more about the formula, the value equals delivery over expectation.
All right. How much more can I tell you that I didn't tell you? So think about it. You're outside a restaurant. It's kind of a dive looking place. You walk inside. It's outdated. It's clean, but it's outdated. Your expectation is probably not very high. On a scale of 0 to 10, it's a 3 maybe, or a 4. At best, a 5. Whoa, what happens? What happens is the owner comes out from the kitchen. He or she is the chef, and they welcome you to the restaurant. And they talk to you about all the homegrown ingredients and family recipes. And the food is fabulous. And the waiter and waitress are incredible. Wow. The expectation was a 5. They delivered. Don't say 9 yet. Let's say 6.5, because there's more we can do. Okay. So that V equals D over E is incredibly important to the perception, or taking the perception of your prospect and delivering more than they expect. The same goes for your associates. How can you make this at least a 9 workplace for them? Ask them that question. I have 1 minute to tell you a story. There was one time in my life where I thought I was a 10, Taylor. I was delivering a 70-minute keynote address to 3,000 bed and breakfast owners. And at the end of it, I got a standing ovation. Now, I don't get those every day. I got to be honest with you. So that felt good. Now, a couple of days later, they called me up and booked me for the next year. They didn't often do that. Normally, they have different speakers to give you different perspectives. But it was a resounding success. We want you to come back. So I checked in to the hotel where they're having the convention a day early. And I'm running into B&B owners who know me, but I don't remember them because I've dealt with so many different clients throughout the course of the year. And they're like, Don, it's Mary and Bill. Remember us? No, but I'm glad you came up and said, hi, man, how are you? Where are you from? And then we start talking, right? And they say, Don, normally we come to this conference every 2 years, but we found out you were speaking again this year. So we booked a flight and we're here for this year. We can't wait to see you. Okay, stop right there, Bill and Mary. First of all, thank you. Secondly, let me ask you this. What did you do differently in the last 364 days to improve your operation as a result of seeing my 70 minutes. And this is a real true story. Bill says to me, oh, Don, we changed the way we answered our phone. We do that tagline. People love it. Okay, cool. What else did you do, Bill? And Bill did this. We, you didn't know what to say. I wasn't a 10. I don't care how many standing ovations you get. At best, I was a 9. If they're not going to pay attention, if they're not going to listen, it's never a 10. The bottom line is you and I are never a 10. We can always do something to improve or to be better. Okay. I'll leave you with that. We're at 12:11. We're over time. Sorry.
Don, thank you again so
Taylor,
much for joining us.
Thank you for doing this. I'm sorry my voice was going out. I've still got one more of these to do, so I guess I'll be hydrating.
We definitely want to have you back for more of these great
I definitely want to be
stories and points and tips. And
Yep.
again, if you need Don, contact him at freshrevenues.com. You see his phone number there on the screen. And also you can catch this live stream replay on our Facebook page, which is Office of Business Diversity and Compliance. And also the replay will be on our YouTube channel, which is OBDC Memphis. And so again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon for the next one. Thanks, everyone.